Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the Cozy Talk Shows. Here we are again. We have Amanda Cottrell. Hi, Amanda.
Good morning or good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon for us. Good morning for you. And Nomsa McCube, as always. Hey, Nomsa, and myself, Grant Morrell. And today we are going to be talking about joining the dots because it's now the end of the year and it is a great time to do exactly that. Joining the dots and how you take information into implementation. That's what we're going to be talking about. So, really, essentially, when you think of your life, you think of your year that's just gone past, or still going past, and it's just completing the end of the year. Think about everything, joining it all together. What have you learned? What's gone on in this year? Because sometimes we're very busy rushing around, aren't we? But going from one thing, once we just get something just put down in place, then we just move on. But when do we take time to reflect and actually join those dots? Now, we often talk about learning things. Now, Amanda's a great teacher, teaches loads of kids and gives them lots of information. But when do we take that information? When do we really take it and not just learn it for a short term memory, but when do we really absorb that information and turn that information into implementation? So, when do we take it from info and actually start doing it? And that's what we want to be talking about today. Amanda, what's your thoughts around the subject?
I really like this because specifically this year, that was like one of my focuses without actually really even knowing it. This year, I was like, I want to really commit to myself and to do something so that I can like legitimately show myself that I can commit to doing something that I've set out to do. And I've
Right,
done that in the past. Like I set out to like become a teacher and I did that, and I set out to finish my master's and I did that. It took me longer than I expected because I had a baby in the middle, and it took me 4 years, 4.5 years instead of just two to do it, but I still like set out and then completed it. But this year I was like, okay, like one of the things I really want is to like commit to something and be able to show that I can show up and commit to myself like every week, no matter what. And so I did, and it was through writing. And so I wanted to write a blog entry every single week of the year. So for 52 weeks, and now I'm at like week 48 because I started a little bit into the new year when I started writing them. And I'm just like, I was able to do that. And it's like from the idea to the implementation is really about consistency and our ability to show up each and every day or each and every week and consistently show up doing what it is that we set out to do, even when we don't feel like it, even when we're got other things going on, even when we're sick or not feeling super great. And so that was something that for me, I was just like, how can I prove to myself that I can show up for myself each and every day? And if somebody reads it, great. And if nobody reads it, that's okay too. And it's interesting because I've actually had people reach out and be like, oh, I read your blog and I want to let you know this, or I read your blog and like, thank you. It was so inspiring this week. And so that just like fills my cup so much because it shows that like what I was actually really just doing for myself to show that I could show up for myself in that implementation of it has like helped other people in different ways too. So sometimes I think that like when we get information and an idea, it's the implementation is really about consistency and consistently showing up for yourself. What do you think, Grant?
I think consistency is the key word. It's brilliant. Consistency, and a lot of people do things slightly. They do things a little bit, or they do it with great impulse for a while, and then it stops. It goes quiet, and it is that inconsistency that really takes a long while. You may be familiar with the flywheel effect. It's called a flywheel effect. So that when you're actually pushing a big cog or a big wheel. Remember, when you was a kid, did you ever have that thing in the playground, the roundabout? Do you know? And like you push it, it's pretty heavy, isn't it? Like you're pushing it for a while. Oh my God. And then you push it, and then you get the next one to push it. And then, and as you push it, in the end, you could almost just do it with like two fingers. Just that's known as the flywheel effect. Okay. It is that. And momentum will give you exactly that. It gives you the flywheel effect. Otherwise, you're starting from scratch again and you're having to push it like that with all your strength. And it takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy, In some cases, if you're doing that with a business, a lot of money and a lot of time, and you can run out. Much more economical in terms of money, stress, and time to use the flywheel effect. So consistency is a very, very key word. So I think when it comes to like joining the dots, it's a bit like Amanda, you're going to know this about an exam. How's the best way to prepare for an exam? Is it to wait till the night before and just sit there and cram along for 16 hours and get like 45 minutes sleep and go and sit the exam? Or is it to schedule it throughout the year? I mean, you tell us, you're the past master at this one. So what's the way
Yeah,
to do it?
absolutely not. I remember literally in my university, like studying for tests and studying for tests and then writing the test, and then somebody be like, "Oh, what was the questions on the test?" I'm like, I have no idea. I have no can't even remember what I wrote. I can't even tell you what I wrote because it was like I just wrote it and then all of that information went out of my head.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. I
I
know.
don't know if anybody else has those like feelings when they write tests, but that was me. I would like study, 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 write the test, and then like literally forget everything that I learned, like not remember any of it.
No, I totally get what you mean. I totally, not necessarily with exams, but just certain things. Anything that you do in a hurry, anything you do last minute, because it's short-term memory, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just you crammed it in quickly and it comes out quickly. So like you literally crammed it in the night before, short-term memory, quick revision in the morning, gone in, you've done it, wrote it, and afterwards it's just gone again.
And
And this is
that's why
my point.
like something as simple as like kids studying for spelling tests doesn't work because they like study for the test for that week and then unless they're like implementing it into their like daily writing, they forget how to spell it like the very next week. Like it's amazing. And so that's why there's like really spelling tests as in like writing a test and studying for it every single week like they used to do when I was a kid. That doesn't happen anymore because it's not actually on converting into implementation. It's just like study quickly for this, but not implement it. So we really have to show kids the connections between why you learn to spell and then like how you implement it and why it's important. And for me, I'm always like, I'm not a very good speller. So I'm like, just learn how to spell well enough that spell check can help you. That's my, that's my only goal. Just learn
What
how
an
to spell.
interesting point, isn't it? You've got to
Well,
spell a little bit just for spell checker so it understands exactly what it is you're even trying to get to, right? Yeah.
there's words like that I like yesterday I was like one kid's like, how do you spell icicle? And I'm like, I always forget if there's an S in it or not. So I'm like, look it up, right? Every time. I'm like, or like the word imagine. I'm like, is there an E on the end? I think there's an E on the end. Let's double check because I
You got
just
me you got me thinking, isn't icicle a bit like bicycle? Isn't it? There's some similarities.
it's such a hard word.
Icicle.
There's no
When
S in icicle, just
I
so you
cannot think, when would the last time be that I've ever written the word icicle? I, I I would think 40 years since I've written the word icicle. I can't imagine a situation where I would have.
Well, we were writing about the Northern Lights and the Arctic, and so they were writing about icicles, and they wanted to know how to spell icicle, and I was like, I don't know how to spell icicle. I gotta look it up because I always think there's an S in it, and I'm pretty sure there's not.
So if you're listening, the competition prize is the first person who can write in how to spell icicle correctly. Um, so, but yeah, absolutely. And it is, so I guess it's about over time, right? Over time, gradually learning these things repetitive and absorbing it. Um, I was watching a brilliant video. I fell asleep watching it actually, and it was about a really, really great musician who talks about excellence. His name is, hang on, I'm going to tell you right now. His name is Kenny Werner, Werner. And apparently all these jazz guys knows about him. And it is about effortless mastery. And he says the moment you put your, it's very interesting because it very much relates to coaching. Some of the language he uses is a little bit borrowed from that, and of course he is a coach in a sense, but in a music coach. And he says the moment you put your hands on the keys and you start thinking what your hands do, you've lost. The moment you think it's about free playing and just going with it. Now, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I'm guessing that he knows obviously lots of patterns of music. And he says about new music, there's no such thing. We only know so many patterns. It's nonsense. You're never going to create anything new, only a new variant thereof. And I think that's a really important point. But and forgive me if you're listening, Kenny, because I'm paraphrasing your work here. But he says when you put it down, I think when you play, you just put your hands anywhere and see what happens. But I think when he hears something, it sounds a bit like something. So, and then he remembers the pattern. Oh, yeah, if I'm playing something like that, then the next part will be this and the next part will be that, is my interpretation of it. But it is about letting go of ego and thinking. The moment you look at a competitor and think, are they better? Am I as good as? Then you're not playing to your optimum straight away. You're really not, because your mind's divided onto that rather than pure flow and giving what you do. And I think that's a really important point. I'm going to have to listen to his documentary again. Fantastic, legendary book out, but I'm much more of an audio person, so I just sat there on the sofa and listened and managed to fall asleep through the middle of it, obviously. So maybe I absorbed some of it automatically, I don't know, but I'll certainly need to dive into it again. It's a great concept. But yeah, when it comes to joining the dots, how would you recommend, Amanda, as you go through the year and you get this information, you learn something new? How would you suggest that people go about absorbing that information?
Well, there's different ways to like absorb information, right? And there's like tricks to it. And while you were speaking and talking about the documentary you were just watching, it made me think of a book I read a while ago. And I actually should go back and reread this book because it was really like thought provoking and I haven't implemented any of the like things that I learned from the book into my life. And then I literally was just listening to a podcast the other day and it talked about this exact same book and it's called Limitless by Jim Quick. And it's about upgrading your brain and learning anything faster and how to unlock
Jim
your.
Quick. Yeah, Jim Quick's a cool guy. Cool
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, you obviously have read or listened to him speak or something. And the brain research behind that, when you say like, oh, I suck at spelling, like I really could be better at spelling if I implemented the things that he talks about in the book Limitless.
He,
If I
he, he's the guy. So he's the guy, the Asian guy, right? Who fell over and bashed his head as a kid. Isn't it? And they said he's the kid with the broken mind. Was that him? Jim Quick?
think so. I don't
Yeah.
remember that part of the book. I remember the like different things that he talked about as strategies for because our brains are we have neuroplasticity in our brains that we actually like those thoughts of like your brain is this way and your IQ is set from like birth isn't actually true, that we actually have neuroplasticity and how you can use different like tricks and tools to help you remember just about anything or help you be faster reader or help you remember things better and all of these. I
Right.
remember that part I read this book probably about 5 years ago, which is why I'm like, I should go back and reread this. Actually, that's one of the things I've been doing lately. Instead of buying new books, I've been going back and rereading some of the books that I was like, wow, that book was so good. I need to go back and reread it because I read fact books all the time and then I get them confused and then I don't actually implement the things that it says. And so like that's one of the things that he talks about in Think and Grow Rich too, is most people just read a book once and then are on to the next one and then read the next book and go on to the next one. And they never actually truly study what's
Uh-huh.
the book. And so um I know Bob Proctor used to talk about how he would read Think and Grow Rich every single day for years and go back and reread and go back and reread and go back and reread. And he was always reading that book so that he could more deeply understand it. And it like boggled other people's minds why he was rereading this book so many times. And that's a book that I've actually reread like I think about 3 or 4 times, but it is one that I keep beside my nightstand and I should read a couple pages every night. I don't, but I try to sometimes. And I get into, like you said, Grant, where I'm motivated and I'm like, hey, I'm going to read a couple pages of this book every single night. And then I get distracted and I start reading another book and I forget to go back to that book. And then I get off of that like consistency train. Whereas maybe that should be my goal in the new year is to keep just reread that book over and over again, at least 2 pages every night or 5 pages or something, because it is such an inspiring book. But then I also like to read other books too. But I do read every single night, no matter what. Basically, like 365 days a year, I read for at least half an hour every night. But I don't wasn't always reading that specific book, which is one thing that I know Bob Proctor talked about in his success. And he was on like The Secret and different very successful in his businesses around manifestation and implementation of just making sure that you are consistent and consistently showing up and not not like following your passion, something that you're really passionate about. So yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, and it comes neatly onto what we're saying about rereading things. People are in a hurry to gather information, and I emphasize the word gather, but not really understand. There's a difference between reading and attending a course and understanding it. And I talk about this a reasonable amount these days. It's about knowing and feeling. And the reason I know about this or feel about this, wherever you want to, is because it happened to me. There was something which I'd known for quite a long time. And I knew it. And, if I sat a little test or a quiz on it, if I had to sit here and talk about it, I'd be able to talk about it. But one day, and I can't remember what the thing was, but one day we was talking about it and suddenly I went, oh, oh. It kind of really landed with me. And this was like maybe a couple of years after I'd known, a few years after I'd known the thing. And I was like, suddenly, I can only describe it that I then felt the thing. It was like absorbed into my DNA. And that's very different to just knowing, not being able to, hey, I can answer the question. Oh, yes, 3 points are this. But like, I wouldn't know how to do it, you know, to actually saying I can absorb it. And like, yeah, I've got it. Like if somebody asked me now about certain subjects, I could sit there with no preparation and talk about it for as long as you want. I've so much knowledge about it. Certain things I certainly wouldn't be able to do it with, obviously, like all of us. But it was absorbing it so that it's part of who you are. And I think this is, and I talk to a lot of my clients about this, is when you are a walking example of what you're teaching. And this is, I think, when it goes from knowing, and boy, oh boy, there's a lot of coaches out there who know stuff, but do they walk the talk? Are they actually that? When they're not here on front of the screen in front of you guys, are we the same people off camera? That's the important thing. That's the important thing. So is it absorbed into your DNA? Are you really a walking product, a walking advert for your product? That's when it goes from knowing to implementing. Okay. So from information to
That's
implementation.
so funny that you said that because it made me think of this like one influencer that my friend was friends with on like Instagram, and she had like probably like 20,000 followers or something. And I was like, oh, like she looks like she's really into like yoga and mindfulness and all of this stuff. And my girlfriend's like, oh yeah, she's a total cokehead. And I was like,
What was that? What did they say?
she's a
Right,
coke
can
addict.
you guys hear me now?
She was someone who on Instagram portrayed herself as this like super mindful, like
Oh,
very like holistic
Hello?
person. But then in real life,
Hello? Can you hear me now?
yeah,
but
we can
much
hear you
better.
now.
Much better, Nobster.
But then in real life, she wasn't actually walking the walk that she was portraying on social media, which I just like, I always think about that when I see these like super successful, like influencers or whatever. And I'm like, but are you really truly walking that walk? Are you showing up? Are you meditating every day? Are you like not doing cocaine? Even though you're pretending that you are this super holistic person. Like it was mind-boggling to me that this person on Instagram could be this very like portray herself as this amazing yogi and then in real life be the like basically a dumpster fire. And it was like, it's so funny. But like what you're talking about is exactly that, Grant, is how we like, are we showing up in real life the same way we portray ourselves in other areas, right? And
Yeah.
like you show up authentically yourself.
Thank you. And someone said I did an interview for a conference. I've been accepted to speak at I've been accepted to speak at a couple of conferences for next year so far, two or three actually. And for one of them, when they do an interview for you and put it out to their audience, so that long before the conference, they know more about me, what I'm doing, an interview, my background, etc. And before you're doing a video, you're prepping up and you're chatting with a person, and we're just chewing the fat. What's been going on with you recently? Da, 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 da. And he said, "You are a walking advert for what you do. You really are." Because this is me off camera, right? This is me when I'm not, hey, hi everybody. When I'm not doing that, it is me just talking to him, nothing being recorded, and we're just chatting. And he said, "You're a complete." You are the real deal. You do exactly what you do. And I filled out the room when I was at his conference. I was literally sitting on the window ledges and stuff, which was really great. And I said, because what I talk about is the real stuff, no fluff, real stuff. This is what works. I don't go there to try to look clever. I don't care about that. I just want people to get results. That's what really matters. That's what you can really measure. That's what really changes lives. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's so many people with great social media, way better than mine. Great social media, and they're like leaning on the Ferraris or stepping off the yachts in the linen suits, and like the cokeheads, whatever. There's something like that, and it's like, yeah, but what they talk about health and vitality and peak performance. Like, hang on, what's going on? It happens. No names mentioned, but some of these. I mean, there's some very genuine ones, absolutely. But it annoys me because the people who are pretending to be it are sometimes, clouding the issue with the genuine ones. And you see some of them, and happens to me sometimes. People say, "Oh, have you heard of this person?" I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't say anything negative, but there's some, and there are equally some very, very good people out there. But yeah, my point is, why don't people just be real? Why don't you just use the things you need to? I mean, if someone's had an addiction, I completely get that. Yeah, I spoke to some awesome guy the other day. He's a musician, great guy, super, super, super nice guy. And I said something about, a few of them are going over there and having a drink. He said, "Oh, not me." He said, "I'm an alcoholic." I said, "Are you?" He said, "Yeah, I don't drink any longer." Now, it's interesting because I don't know much about that, except it's an illness, obviously. And he said, "I don't drink now." I said, "So you're a reformed alcoholic?" He said, "No, no. If I drank again, I'd be an alcoholic again." He said, "So I just don't drink now." Really? Yeah, and he's great. He performs wonderfully without drink. He's an actor, a musician, and a super super nice guy. I mean, really really nice. And like great. I wonder why he ever felt he needed it. It's an addiction, but he was honest about it. And I'm cool with people like that. Is try to hide it. If you got that problem, it's real life. We're there to help you. So we're not vilifying people who got it, but just don't hide it. Don't pretend to be what you're not. Be the real thing. And a great friend of mine, who I know from the Chamber of Commerce years ago, he's an ex-convict, very, very much so. Spent many years behind bars and runs a charity for wayward teenagers who are going the wrong way. And the whole emphasis is don't screw your life up like I did. That's it. That's his whole. He's very open about it. Shows pictures of him in prison, and he gives you the reality of it. He's not, he's not putting it out as a good thing. He's saying, it's awful. Let me tell you the reality. You think it's this? Let me tell you what it's really like. You do not want to do that. And then he'll get someone like me in to say, look, there is an alternative route. Grant can teach you how to do this, how to do that. You haven't got to go down that route. That you do have options. And but he's very open and honest about his background. Super nice guy, you know. He just took a wrong path and it went the way he did. But here's the key thing, I think, when it comes to it. And Nomsa, I'd love to get your views on this. When it comes to joining the dots, we all learn information throughout the years. We said, if you only just joined us, anybody out there on social media, when you join the dots, you learn things throughout the year, but you're busy. Once you've learned it as an amazing, you learn it and then you go on to the next thing. Have you really absorbed that thing? When is you reach the point I spoke about, which is when you learn something, oh yeah, learn point A, B, C, D. But sometimes you then feel it. It's like you're wearing it like a coat that you've had for 15 years and it just fits every part of your body. It's like, oh yeah, I really get this now. It's not something you know, it's something that you automatically then do. This is what we're talking about when it's joining the dots, when it goes from information to implementation. Nomsa, what's your thoughts of experience around that?
Information implementation. I think I agree with you guys when you say sometimes there are people that teach on social media and they're not what they teach. And mostly what I've realized with myself, for me, what I teach on social media is what I practice, even when I'm offline. But what I have noticed is people sometimes they will not allow you to become the person that you are meant to become. Because as a coach, we coach people to become who they want to become, meaning we have to implement that ourselves. So we have to be good example. Like this morning, I was talking to this girl. For me, personally, what you see on social media is what I do in real life. I always explain things to people, even if I need help, I've always asked. But then I put a message, something yesterday in the group, and I needed help with something. And then someone put a message straight away, said, "Oh, Nomsa, I'll help you." I was like, "Okay, thank you." And the person that runs the group, and then it comes back to me and say, "Why did you put that message? I've deleted your message. It's more personal." I was like, "But I'm asking you help. If I'm asking you help, I've got to be real.
Right.
And I've got to express the desire for me wanting that help and why I need help. It's just a simple and the simple things." But then after talking to her, I realized actually people don't become who they want to become because they're scared of being judged. And I've experienced it myself. Even with the people around me, I've experienced it. So I'm wondering now, joining the dot and implementing, how many people who are actually coaches out there who are trying to fit in with the crowd. So
Oh,
that, yeah, so
well,
that's the thing that has been bugging me when I look at the topic, and I'm like, people actually like to shut you down. So I'm just wondering how many people were stopped becoming, like Amanda says, people come in, they're not who they say they are. So I'm wondering how many people who are pretending to be something that they're not because they want to be liked, because they want to fit in with the crowd, and they're not really joining the dot to implementing what they're meant to be implementing. I don't know. So that's actually my thing that I'm wondering at the moment, honestly.
I think you're onto something, Nomsa. I think you're onto something. There are lots of coaches, and if you are one of them, because you know if you are. If you are, this is not to vilify you, not at all. But it's just to say that because you mentioned a key word there, Nomsa, and that was because they want to fit in. You see a career path for it and you want to fit in, and it's a human instinct. I understand that. But if you are one of those, remember that you don't have to fake it. You know, what I wrote in my book was about not faking it. For don't do that. make it, shape it while you make it. Shape it. Even if you're not exactly where you want to be at, that's okay. Everybody's on the journey at some point, But if you're here, be there. Be the master of that place here. And then that's great for the people who are here because they need to aspire to be there. And then by which time you will be there, and then be who you are at that time because there's lots of people who need your help. You really haven't got to be at the top of the tree. Just be congruent because people will read this in you. People will read this in your body language, in your tone of voice. It literally comes through the pores of your skin. We can smell it. I mean, we're instinctive human beings. We can smell each other quite literally. Scent and air, we can smell danger. We can pick up on all these things. We don't necessarily recognize it in those terms, but as instinctive animals, which we've had to be to hunt and survive and live and not get murdered on the way home from work. We've got areas we pick up when something's wrong with people. That will be affecting your business. That will be affecting your business. So it's actually better for your outcome, better for your stress levels, better for your fulfillment, better for engagement, better for being accepted for people. All the things that we're worried of not having, you get more of it by being congruent because people can read that, they can sense it, they can smell it in you. And when you are congruent, it's very attractive. People are attracted to you. So perhaps as it comes over this Christmas period, if you think about joining the dots, what have we information we have taken in throughout the year? When we think about the information that we've absorbed to try to be that thing, think about which parts you've really absorbed and become, because that will be your secret to success, I think. So thanks for bringing it up, Mops, as a pivotal point, and I think it's led me onto that segue. Amanda, does that mean anything to you? Do you think that could be directed at certain people to help them even further?
Yeah, I think that when I was going back in my head to like kids and how do we like get this idea of like information to implementation at like a very young age. And it's bringing me back to when I was teaching this thing on health and about healthy eating because we wanted to make stop motion videos about like eating healthy is just like something fun to do. And one of the kids like instantly blurted out like, I eat nothing healthy at all. And I like laughed
Oh
and I'm
dear.
like, so they're only like in grade 5 and yet they already know like what things are healthy and what things are not. And the fact that he's like, I don't eat anything healthy. Like the only thing healthy I eat is raw carrots. I don't like anything else. Everything else is like packaged garbage. And he fully admitted that like in the middle of class. And he just like laughed and I laughed and I laughed. But we then at the like after we did this like big stop motion video project, we brought in our favorite like healthy recipes and kids got to try all of these healthy like recipes that kids make at home with their families. And this kid who eats like nothing healthy and like only actually tried almost everything and really liked a lot of things. So that was like the first door opening of like being willing to try. And then I don't know if he actually implemented eating anything healthier once he left my classroom. But it's so funny how so much of us, even with our eating habits, we know better. We know what food is healthy for us. We know what we should be eating, but are we implementing that? And how often are you just like in such something so simple as like making healthy eating choices? Are we actually putting it into action? That's something that you do each and every day. That's a choice you make each and every day. And how often are you actually making those healthy choices? I always tell the kids, you don't have to eat healthy all the time, but it should be like a 90-10 split, right? You should be eating healthy 90% of the time and like 10% of the time, like having your chocolate or having your like I'm the worst because Reese's Pieces is like the worst chocolate you could possibly ever eat for yourself. It's so bad for you. And yet that's one of my favorites. So I try to like only buy the like expensive, healthy Reese's Pieces versions of like chocolate and peanut butter. But because that's one of my weaknesses for sure is chocolate. But 90% of the time, I try to focus on eating healthy. And that's something so simple, yet so much, especially in America. Like I live in Canada, but like in the US, there's very few people that are making those healthy choices and implementing them, even though they know better. But then at the same time, too, sometimes I think people aren't aware of certain things. Like I was talking with some parents the other day about a child that I think really has some severe ADHD. And I was like, do you look at the packaging that you give your child? And you should be avoiding red food dye all the time. And they're like, what's red food dye? And I'm like, have you been living under a rock? Like, this is what I wanted to say to the parent, but I didn't. Because it's like there's like so many links to red food dye and ADHD and attention problems in children and all of this stuff. And I'm like, there's an app that you can get that you can scan things and find out what's in it. And just really, but they weren't aware. But now that they are aware, maybe they'll implement that and check to make sure that they're avoiding giving their child anything with red food dye, because it could be severely affecting their attention for sure. And I think that it is based on what I see them eat. So there's things that where it's like you might know better, but you don't do better because there's like disconnect between knowing and doing and getting to that doing piece.
Great point. Great point. Knowing and not doing. Yeah. So why do we think that people do know things and don't do? Why is it? What's the barrier? What stops people? Because we
Sometimes
probably know that that's the end path to success, to happiness, to weight loss, to relationships, to blah, 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 whatever. So why do people just know things and knowing is just enough for them? They don't actually do it. What do you think, Robson?
Um, I think it is depend with the people around you, or sometimes the people don't bother to read the things and they don't bother to take action, and which is a really, really like a big problem. You have to, like Amanda saying that some parents, when you say they don't know the app and things like that, I think it's just people around you that motivates you, that educates you. It really depends. I had a meeting with my client yesterday, and we were talking about the things that he likes to do and stuff. He's just like he's a scientist. He was like telling me like the things that we do here at Inquest Talks, and I was like, I'm so impressed. Like he was like, that is my daily living, like my habit. That's what I do. I was like, I'm really so impressed. Because sometimes people don't really have time to look after themselves, to implement the things that they know that they need to implement. Or sometimes the people they want to fit in is just to put a simple one, because I've seen like even when I do things on social media, people come to me and say, don't do that. And I'm like, what's the heck are you talking about? And they'll be like, don't post that. I'm like, what is it got to do with you? I'm like, everything that I post is me. I'm just teaching people to be there, to be themselves. Like I love dancing. Sometimes I put my dancing on my personal profile, and someone said to me, your dancing is harming your branding. I was like, how is it harming my branding? I am the love harmonist. This is who I am. I don't do the normal. I was like, how is it doing harming my brand? The only thing I need to do is just to hire a professional photographer and just do the dancing properly. Because like when I'm posting my video, I'm mucking about. But it was like if I really was to put it really serious, I was like, it's how we all do things. It's different. People try to fit in a lot of grant and they know the things that they need to be doing, they don't. And that's why they say graveyard is the richest place in the world, the wealthiest place in the world. Brains never developed. Uh, Everything that has never been accomplished is in the graveyard.
Absolutely, yeah. That's where people take all their dreams in the
Yeah.
graveyard. Yeah, it's but yeah, absolutely. I think it's so true. If you just, I would just say now, and I was going to ask you this, but to yourself, if you know that there's something you've learned this year, but you haven't implemented it, just make a note of what that is, and then what's been stopping you. What is that thing that you've learned throughout the year and you really know it would be for your benefit to implement it, then what stopped you? Drop us a message. Let us know what it is. And if you want, I think one of us coaches could help you achieve that in 2025. So that's my message to you guys as the wrapping up of the year is that's the thing. Because what you've learned this year, don't let it be wasted. Let's take the information from 2024 and make it the implementation for 2025. That's my message. Amanda?
It really is just about like taking that information and being consistent, right? We know better. We know what we need to do to achieve, or we can learn it on so many different areas. Like you have literally a computer in the palm of your hands. You can learn just about anything in the world right now, which is unbelievable. And yet so many of us just use it for mindless scrolling. And so really like implement what you're learning, right? Consider what it is that you're following on social media and like get rid of all of the crap and start focusing on some like really positive, empowering things. Like when I look at social media, most of the time it pops up as like teaching ideas or like something super mindful that I'm like, oh, that's thoughtful. I need to like consider that more often. And like so often some of the super fun things that I do in my classroom are because I saw something similar on social media and I was like, oh, let's do that. That looks so fun. Right. But it really is about like when I go on social media, I'm there to learn, I'm not there to mindlessly scroll. And so like, what is it that you're doing with your time? And then how can you consistently show up each and every day or each and every week to achieve something that you want to achieve? And when you do that and you're consistent with it, that's when things will really change.
Brilliant, brilliant.
I love that. I love that. For me, it's this thing that is bugging me. What Grant, the question that Grant is asking, what's stopping implementing? Is it fear of being judged or is just laziness? Because we can make excuses and say we don't want people to think of us like this, but maybe it's laziness. But as we go to 2025, guys, the question that Grandy has asked you, please just ask yourself that questions and write some notes and make a vow to yourself to show up for yourself and show up for your family and be the changer in your life. So that's what I leave you with, guys. And if you're watching us on any other platform on social media, please do share the video for us to spread the word. And God bless and live with grace. Okay, Grant, you need to stop the live because you are the host.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And for those of you who don't celebrate it, happy holidays. Love to you and your families and loved ones. Bye for now.